This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward, and we are back from our favorite time of year.
So it's Christmas?
Holly would be highly offended by that because we just came back from the Integra Partner Network Conference, which is the time that all of our partner networks come in. We get to be together, exchange ideas, and you think Christmas is better than that?
I do think Christmas is better than that, but that's because I'm a Christmas nut. However, from a business perspective, absolutely, this is the most spectacular time of year, at least for us, for me, meeting with all of our partner agents. And it's always the networking. It's learning from others. It really is hard to explain unless you are in an agency network, unless you are part of this camaraderie environment that happens within these settings.
I've got our theme for next year.
Go.
We can do Christmas in April.
Christmas in April. Okay, there you go.
And you could dress up as Buddy the Elf and all that kind of stuff.
I will not dress up as Buddy the Elf, but we can play a lot of Elf videos. There is a reality that Elf is a year-round movie, so I'm all for that.
There we go. Holly will be so excited
Theme
that
done.
we have figured out our conference theme for next year.
Theme secured. We've got it. Let's roll.
Let's talk this year, though. We had several of our Integra partner agents share ideas with us, as well as some industry leaders that came in and shared expertise. And it was absolutely fantastic. My favorite presentation of our partner agents was John Dunn from the Dunn Insurance Group down in Austin, Texas. And he told the story about DBW.
I know you're going to enlighten us about DBW because I have forgotten already. And I'm going to hate that I said this out loud because you're going to want to do it. But I really wish that I had like a camera and microphone walking around behind me the entire conference.
Oh, yeah, we're so going to do that. That would be fantastic. 100%. GoPro on your head. We're going to make it happen. But DBW came from a story that John Dunn shared with us from his son, who is into competitive wrestling. And his wrestling coach kept hollering DBW at him and hollering this at the team and throughout practice. And John will tell you that he was not a wrestler. This is not a world that he was familiar with, and came up to the coach after practice and said, "Okay, coach, what is DBW?" And the coach said it means do boring well. And that is a key to success. And I absolutely loved that. He talked about we are not Superman. We are not saving lives. We're not doing things that are really and truly incredibly exciting to the outside world every day. But we can have the conversations. We can create a fantastic customer experience. And if we figure out how to do boring well, then we're going to be successful.
As salespeople, marketing people, idea people that generally lead independent agencies, we really struggle to do boring well. We really struggle with contentment of doing the same thing over and over again. I've heard many agents during my career say, "I'm just tired of selling auto and home insurance," even though they were highly successful, even though they were incredible at building a business and they had just done this for years and they were experts. And to hear an agent say, "I'm just really tired of selling auto and home insurance. I want to sell large commercial," or vice versa. "I'm really sick and tired of these commercial customers beating me over the head every year with going out for bids, going out for proposals. Maybe I just need to sell some auto and home insurance." The grass is not always greener. Do boring well is being able to continue to do what it is that you've done very well through the process that's made you successful. There's a lot to this to really unpack because it's at the core of what we need to do as independent agencies to continue to grow our businesses by doing what it is that we do best. I do want to add a little side note. When you said wrestling, you almost got really close to that Southern pronunciation of wrestling. And
I did not. Don't you dare. I did not.
the second and third pronunciation of wrestling came out extremely appropriate in wrestling, full pronunciation, but that first, just a touch, we can have Dave go back and replay it.
DBW came from a story that John Dunn shared with us from his son, who is into competitive wrestling.
There was this just little hint of wrestling that just happened there for a moment. Just wanted to point that out.
Oh, my goodness. What was really funny is when John started telling the story, he did say the only thing he knew about wrestling was Hulk Hogan.
The Hulk Hogan effect on society. We were eating the other day and the entire kitchen at the restaurant was tuned in to professional wrestling, and they were fixated, like the whole kitchen. It was an open kitchen and there was a TV. The TV was not pointed at the customers. It was pointed back to the kitchen and the employees, and pro wrestling was going on, and it was fascinating.
Pro wrestling is having a huge resurgence now that The Rock is the president of the organization.
That's awesome. Anything The Rock touches, he's like Oprah. They just touch things and they go to gold.
Thinking about the idea of doing boring well, if you think about Kobe Bryant's workout routine and that he would train 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, over and over, doing the same things. And that's the reason that he's Kobe Bryant. And you look at professional athletes, and the reason they have great success is they do boring well. If you look at Tom Brady's eating habits, these are not exciting. Tom Brady was not going to New Orleans and eating red beans and rice and gumbo and a big old slice of king cake with a side of bread pudding. His diet was very clean, very simple. He did boring well, and it served him well throughout his career and beyond.
The first thing that comes to my mind would be like a major league shortstop, a major league infielder. We dismiss how near perfection in a game of failure, by the way, that a professional infielder is when it comes to just making plays. I just looked up really quick, and one of my favorite all-time shortstops, of course, would be Cal Ripken. But I looked up Derek Jeter, and Derek Jeter had a career fielding percentage of .976. What that means is that 9.7 times out of 10, he made the play. That is an incredible number that, if you think about it, and if you think about the number of innings that he played, 23,000 innings. I don't have it in front of me of how many career chances he had. That would be the number of chances he had to make a play versus not making the play. But a fielding percentage of 970, 980, that's just absolutely absurd to think about being that close to perfect when the ball is coming at you from different angles, on the ground, in the air. You've got to throw most of the time across the infield, which is not a short throw, by the way, a major league baseball infield at the professional level. And to think about being able to do that 970 or 908 out of 1,000 times, that results in an out that's perfect without error. That's incredible. And it's also incredibly boring if you think about it. If I'm a coach, I want my infielder to make all the routine plays. I don't need them to be Derek Jeter. Just like the wrestling coach that John Dunn's son has, this idea of doing the boring stuff well is the same thing as make the routine play. You don't have to be spectacular. Just do the routine stuff well.
The cute boy and I had a conversation about this, and he disagreed at first. And he was like, no, you find a way to outsource the mundane. You find a way to delegate that and then use your time to think big picture. And I agreed with him and said, absolutely, yes, you do. However, this idea of do boring well, to me, is bigger than that. And I shared that with him with some ideas going on in the telecommunication and the data industry and how we get involved with shiny object syndrome. In other words, we find new stuff that we think is going to make us more successful, and we put aside the stuff that's actually making us money to chase the shiny object. And he was like, oh, yeah, I get it. If it's working for you, if it's making you money, if it's fulfilling you as a person, keep doing it.
I just want to keep coming back and beating this dead horse. I did mention Cal Ripken Jr. as one of my favorite all-time shortstops. And I did happen to look up here for a second. This is mind-boggling. I didn't know this. I'm a baseball historian, and I didn't know this. In 1990, of which, of course, Cal Ripken played every game because he has the longest consecutive games played streak. So this is during the middle of all that. 1990, and 61 games played on the year by the Orioles. And Cal Ripken had total chances, which is basically he has a chance to make a play. That's what total chances mean. Total chances of 680. That's through the course of April to September, April to early October. He made 3 errors out of 680 chances for a fielding percentage of 996. That's better than AWS server uptime. That's incredible. That's data center reliability stuff going on here. Do boring well. This is an incredible takeaway and theme that we're going to have today. I hope you're listening out there because this is incredible stuff and it's actually the path to success.
I'm going to give us a John Donne quote that's going to make every independent agent and producer that's listening to this podcast is going to make their head explode. So, trigger warning, I'm about to say it. Take a deep breath. The current market is almost easier because you have fewer options.
It's brilliant. It is mind-boggling to the independent agent that just doesn't have parameters, borders, or is not disciplined, okay? And we've talked about this before. We have some self-discipline as independent agents that would serve us well. And like many of our Integra partners, John came from a background of the captive channel, the exclusive channel side of the business. And so when you're trained up in this environment where you just don't have a lot of choices, you don't have any choices. This is what you have a product, this is what you deliver to your customer. Maybe there's a little bit of massaging that can go on within that product, but very little. And you get into the independent agency channel and you're like, head explodes because you got too many choices. It's this idea that if you just minimize some of those choices down to a few really good options, or at least the marketplace does that for you in this case, I agree with him. It should be a little bit easier, even though it's frustrating when you talk about not being able to technically sell, maybe at the same rapid pace. In some cases with some carriers, there's some pullback going on, but I concur. It's a brilliant statement because it goes back to, in a soft market, we don't put enough parameters around ourselves to hold ourselves accountable. We're just like kid in a candy store. We're going all over the place, and then we pay for that down the road in inefficiency, in lost profitability because we're chasing our tail trying to keep up with all the scatteredness that we did selling.
This whole idea of efficiency, that's boring. So how do we do that?
To the whole point of a few less options might actually make it easier. It's a self-discipline mechanism that we have to see the end result while we're doing the front end business. And as a salesperson, that's really hard. If you have an option to help a client and you're sitting at a spot where you can go left and choose maybe a slightly better price and less efficiency. So maybe the carrier doesn't download. Maybe something's not great with that carrier's technology or that environment's technology. Or you got this other option where the technology's great, the efficiency's going to be there long term, and you've got a slightly higher price. The salesperson in us struggles to pick that second option. The salesperson in us struggles to see that end result, servicing application of things, and the salesperson takes over. And this is the piece that I keep harping on. We have to wear both the salesperson hat and the agency business owner hat, because as a business owner, you want your salesperson within reason to pick option 2, the efficiency option, the majority of the time. And as a business owner, you're reluctant as a former salesperson to just take option 1 off the table altogether. We want to give our salespeople all the ammunition that we can for them to be successful, but we're really just not really sure that we can take that inefficient option off the table. And I'm telling you that you can. We've done that. Within our retail setting, within our retail agency, we've created a portfolio and it has thinned up a bit in this hardening market and hardened market that makes it a little more difficult for the sales team to close deals or pursue deals. But the deals that we are closing are sticking, and they're easier to service, and they're easier to manage on the renewal process. The retention is very high. And so as a business owner, I love where we've gone. We've had to put a little extra work into the sales understanding of why we need to do it this way. But in the end, it's the right thing. And we're still selling a lot of business month over month. We're still growing. And so I know it can be done because we're doing it. The challenge is just reaching that point of stepping off into it where we're afraid that efficiency in a market like this is just going to somehow kill us or something.
I would like for you to respond to our agents that are thinking you can do that. You're in a second, third generation established agency. I have a brand new agency and I'm trying to pay the light bill.
Well, John's been in business for less than 18 months and he just got awarded our Rookie of the Year and blew past the highest level of production to $1 million. Shortest time to $1 million in our 14-year partner program history in the hardest market in multi-generations with less markets to offer his clientele. I hear you. I hear the complaint. I hear the debate and argument there, but he's not alone. There's a half a dozen other guys and gals within that same rookie class, so to speak, for us, where they've experienced this restriction, they've experienced the tightening and the lesser options that can be put on the table for their clients. And they're the leading class in the last 14 years during the hardest market. So it's not adding up. That statement doesn't add up to the results we're seeing. Could it be different in some pockets geographically? Probably. I know it's extremely difficult in the state of Louisiana. I know it's extremely difficult in the state of California. If you're listening from there, potentially the state of Florida, but I know your options are a little better. But if you're in one of those areas, then okay, I will defer a little bit to let's talk a little more. Let's get little more information. For the most part, everyone else that would be listening to this podcast within the U.S., Texas is as bad as it's going to be in some of those other states. And so these agents doing that in Texas, it's pretty rough right now. And we're still open and we still have markets, unlike those other two states. But at the same time, it's probably more restrictive here than it is in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, some other states where there's a little less catastrophic exposure. So I don't necessarily just accept I'm starting out and I'm just trying to pay the light bill. But you can pay the light bill by doing this, and you can go faster by giving yourself a little bit more limited option because you're not getting hung up on turning over every rock, chasing quotes, chasing proposals. You're presenting and moving. And that's really important when you're starting out and building that book of business and paying the light bill.
I talked with two different agents at our conference that have been with us over 12 years, and both of them were talking about that they had prospects that they were thinking about bringing on board, but had told them that it just wasn't a good time. There was no way that they could start a new agency right now and be successful. And my internal head almost exploded because we're seeing people start independent agencies right now and having incredibly fast success. And I believe part of it is that this market is hard. And our new agents aren't drinking through a fire hose trying to learn the processes for 25 different carriers all at one time and getting bogged down with that at the beginning. If you're only trying to learn the processes for 8, 10, 12 carriers as opposed to 20, it just makes sense. You're going to move faster.
It bodes well for the state of the agency network business. A little self-promotion there, and that would go for any agency network across the country.
But ours is the best, so come play with us.
There you go. Even if it's a half a dozen, 6, 7, 8 markets, it's been 5 years ago drinking through a fire hose, a kid in a candy store. Everybody wants everything they can get, and they get spread thin, and it's slow to get off the ground. Versus the last 6 to 12 months, watching agencies start up going, okay, so these are my 6 carriers, or these are my 7 carriers. Let's go. And then they just go. And I've been been amazed. We always try to keep things efficient and keep things within this workable environment, thinking about the long term. But we have a market within Texas that is really the southeast corner. So this would be the Golden Triangle area, the Beaumont, Port Arthur, Orange. This is a troublesome area. It's almost exactly the same as South Louisiana, many parts of South Louisiana. We've got 2 agents that have come on board with us in the last 6 months from that area who are absolutely killing it. This has just been a wow factor for me this has just been continued validation. Starting an independent agency in a hard market is a great time to start an independent agency. Once you get past that understandable fear, once you get past that, man, I just don't know if I can make the leap right now. I just don't know if I can do that. This is scary. I understand where that mindset comes from because of restricting markets, but I'm telling you, we see people doing it well and we see people having success, and we're bringing on new partners in this first quarter of 2024 as fast or faster of a rate than we ever have. And it's not just bringing them on. It's bringing them on and they're doing well. And so it's a great time to start an independent agency. And did you slap the agents that were saying that? I hope you didn't, because that would be harassment. But
I didn't, because you do not encourage physical violence within our organization. But I did give them the Shane Tatum look of, you have 3 heads.
Or maybe I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, that's it.
But here's the deal. In their defense, I understand that because their environment was wide open. And it was easy in their mind because it was wide open. And so to get your head around it being restricted and still having success, that's hard. That's hard for someone with a book of business that they're trying to retain, with a book of business that was, I wouldn't say easier to build, because no book of business is easy to build, but maybe it was easier because they had all the available product that they could ever wish for when they started. And so to think about where things are today and think about starting from scratch or starting at zero, I'm sure that is mind-boggling. And I understand why that would be scary. I do. For whatever reason, it has not been a deterrent for success for agencies starting up during this market.
Ultimately, this comes down to a quote from our conference by a brilliant man, which was, "Improve your processes now to prepare for growth later."
Really smart statement. This is when you get into the weeds a little with your processes. If you're an existing agency, if you're an established agency and you're not starting up, this is the time where you invest in those processes. You get things really fine-tuned, because we're going to come out this cycle and your carriers that you've been taking care of are going to open back up and you're going to be ready. You're going to be like a primed pump ready to go. But if you don't take care of those processes and you don't set up those efficiencies, or maybe you need to correct some of that really crazy early day scenario where you spread yourself too thin, and you need to think about how, when this market cycle changes and you have a little more options available within your current books, what carriers are staying with you during this market that you might want to reward with some consolidation, with some efficiency moves down the path? I know you can't do that necessarily right now, but down the road when this cycle changes. And all of that has to do with investing in your processes, thinking about your business. What can you work on within your business to prepare you for that super opportunity of growth that's going to come out of this marketplace in the next somewhere between 6 months and 6 years. That's scary to say that, but I'm done predicting. How about that?
Another quote by a very brilliant man. I'm done predicting.
I'm done predicting.
I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Michael Jordan. "The minute you get away from fundamentals, whether it's proper technique, work ethic, or mental preparation, the bottom will fall out of your game, your schoolwork, your job, or whatever you're doing."
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.